Well, in this episode, we're going to design the center line. It always depends on the, center lines. Now, what's the tool? Go to the architecture headline, and then here you can see grid. What we usually call center line is called grid in Revit. So you can find it in architecture headline and also in the structure headline. It's not different, it's just repeating. Grid is a 2.5D object. What does it mean? When you throw it in one view, it can be seen in other views as well, except in 3D. That's why we don't call it 3D, but we call it 2.5D. So it's not different in which of these levels you draw it. For example, I go to level 2, CLP. I start drawing grid. The shortcut is GR. I can use both. Then I draw the first one here. It's drawn actually automatically. The number 1 also is put automatically. I can put the second one. After I draw it, I click on the distance and I'll change it. I can draw them one by one. I can select them and then click multiple and do them one by one, just what we can see. I can also already, select one of them and it should be second. For example, client. If you array, definitely after that, the objects are put into a group except this one, selected and ungroup. But it will be a trouble. So if you're using array for designing the grids, you need to ungroup them after that. So we can control the dimensions, the sizes by using copy, array, and those are, Now, we do the opposite side, right? I draw these. Now, when you draw this, it does not know that the direction has changed, so it says 7. Now you're going to have to change the name, click it, and say, for example, it's A. Now it understands what is going on. Next one will be B, next one will be C, and the same thing will continue. So you can again copy, you can do them one by one. Again, the same thing. So this is everything about designing, but a very important point here, I would always say that the 0 of the project should be in a specific spot and a constant spot. And in big projects, it's already told you officially that this is the 0 spot and all the groups will work based on that. And if you remember one of the projects where the center lines had crossed, we considered it to be 0. Now, in phase 2, at first the structure is prepared, and then the other groups will import it and start working on it. Therefore, you can say that the structural file recognizes the 0 spot. But how? Just like I said, usually where 2 center lines are crossed is known to be the 0 spot of the project. So after drawing the grids, you're going to have to choose where that is. For example, A and 1 or any of those. You're going to move that spot into the 0 of the Revit and then start modeling. Remember that after the work is finished, when you want to move the entire project into 0, you have a very difficult thing to do. Therefore, from the very beginning, move these grids to 0. Well, how? It's very easy. Go to the site plan, because here you can easily see the 0. Then select all of the grids, and just by using Shift, you're going to have to export this. And then, very simple, click Move. Everywhere you want, for example, these two, you can just move them to 0 spot. Just like that. This might seem easy, but this is the first step that if you don't do it, right, you will get into a big problem. So at first do it, and then move the specific spot into 0. Let me tell you some points. I've seen many people do something weird, which is, for example, they select this, and then they say that, for example, the distance from here, I want it to be 5. Then they say that, oh, this distance to be 5 too. So again, it clicks and changes it to 5, but it doesn't fix. It's not fixed, right? If you want this distance to become 5, you need to select this one so that this one is moved and it becomes 5. So be careful about this. You cannot change the numbers of both sides of the center line. The second thing is that, for example, I delete this, right? What number 6, I delete it. And then I try it again. For example, tomorrow is tomorrow and I'll draw it again. Don't believe that if you delete one and then draw it back, it will be the same. No, it will look at the last one and look, it will name it. So you have to change the name annually because it's not changed automatically. It's not understood, master. If you had a gap somewhere and you need to draw this, for example, so close to this one, you can just click it and then click this spark. Then move it a bit. Also this one, click the spark and then move it. Right? It can also change the name like that. Right? In this way, you can actually fix the places that are, there's a gap, you know. Well, the distance between these two, for example, is 30 centimeters. It's a bit much. I'll change it to 20. Well, the second point, if you draw a grid slanted like that, you know, not straight, it will not be seen in the view. If you draw it straightly, it will be seen. If it's actually straight, which is called H, but this one is G, it will be seen. But the G here, just like it is not seen, which makes sense, I think. Because why would you see a slanted grid? Why would you see that? We don't need to see it. But sometimes your project manager insists on the fact that we need to see this in the view. So in these situations, you're going to have to use this technique. Let me delete it. I'll click grid from here. There's an option called multi-segment here. But you can have multi-segments, segments grids. So click it and draw that slanted grid with the straight end, right? The end of it, the head of it, let's say, must be straight. That will cause you to see it in the view. So this is the technique so I can see slanted grids in the view. Let me delete them. Now, answer my question. Pay attention to my questions. I go to the view and I come to this conclusion that I have another level. So I pick it up and I draw it as level 4. For example, I had a basement too. So I draw this level 2 as level 0. I draw one here, level 4. I also draw one here as the basement and I call it level 0, for example. When I go to level 0 or level 4, I cannot see the grid. Why? The reason is that in this new level, what's the reason that we don't see in grids in these new levels? Well, when you enter the view, you can guess the reason. Why is it? That's right, because the grids do not cross those levels. So always have this in your mind. If the grids do not cross our levels, they will not proceed in those levels. For example, here, I can just hold them and drag them up, and then they cross forward. Now I can see them, but they're still not in zero. So again, I can select them and drag them until they cross zero, and we will be able to see them, right? You should always do this in the opposite side too. For example, now you can just, we just have the numbers, then you will do the same thing for the letters too. You can also use the maximize 3D extent technique. It's the same. So remember that when the grids are not seen in one of the levels, all right, remember, either they have not crossed the levels, which you can check in the view, or they are hidden. It will not be except these two. The next point is about, if you select your grids, you might see a lock and then you might see a 3D here. I want to tell you what these are, right? I've already talked about these subjects in the levels. Let's just have a review. If it's locked, right, then you move one of these grids, all of them are moved. Just like you can see, if you open it, just that grid will be moved. This is what it is about the lock. But what about 3D? When it is 3D and you move it, you will see the effect in other levels. But when you change it into 2D and you move it, not only will it be moved alone, I mean the lock will automatically be opened, it will not affect the other levels. Or just it changes in this level, in this view actually. And this is not that good thing. Why would we want to change the rhythm, right? It's useful sometimes, we will go for it. Or, for example, in any reason, you want to have this head here too. So you can use this, let's say, square, and both of these sides have the heads. So you can manage them in this way. But, for example, I've played the heads of these two. Now I go to the next level and I see that they haven't changed. I go to this plan and I see they haven't changed. So there is a technique that we can move the graphical properties, the graphical settings of the grids from one level to another. How? Well, select it first, then click Propagate Extent. Or now, these settings, it asks us which of these levels we want it to be moved to. For example, I say that TOP level 2, right? And also TOS level 3. For example, let's check it out. You see it? It's moved. So if there's a graphical settings you want in other levels, you can use the propagate extents, and which appears also use select grid. You can use this object, you can use this tool actually. So let me make that a bit organized because it's disorganized. After I drew the grids, what it is in reality is to draw the foundation, but in Revit, we better draw the columns first. It's easier. So in order to draw the columns, you can go to architecture headline and then find columns. When you open it, you can see two kinds of columns: the structural column, which is clear what we deal with, and also color architectural. This is not a column, actually. This is the finish of the, let's say, structural columns. It's not real, it's just for decoration, So I recommend you don't go for this. Now we don't have to deal with it either. we just need to use a structural column. And another suggestion is that generally go to structure headline. Here you can see just one column. And it's actually, I'm sure you will not make that mistake. So just select the column here. As a default, a metal column is already there. So we can just use this one, right? For example, we choose one of the models, we get to the type. Here, click preview, right? So here, then this view actually should be changed into the view that we can see the dimensions. For example, floor plan is a good plan, is a suitable plan, right? We can see everything. Now, the dimensions. What's the F? Well, it's the width. You don't need to memorize this, right? If you click on any of these, it tells you what this is. The only thing that you click and it does not show up is K, which is the radius of this fillet. And it count is in the view, and then click on the rest of them. It's clear actually. Well, you can see it, you can understand it, because in different families there are different names, right? So I've done memorize it, just click it and you can see what it is and then do the rest of the things. So duplicate, for example, for 40 and 30. So this is 30, this is 40, and then OK. Now I can add this to the list of the metal columns, right? Now, if I want a concrete column, what should I do? I think you know, you can just click Load Family, right? You go to your library and using a folder, the structural columns folder, you can select the column you want. There's a point here, right? They have another column which is called columns, just columns. Right? In this folder, the architectural columns exist. Like if you, for example, select one of these, right? You will face this message, this warning that says you're using the wrong category. You're selecting the column through the wrong category. So definitely go to structural columns folder. And then we can see different kinds. We have actually different kinds over here. For example, these are light steels, light metals. It's used, for example, for wall posts. You can use precast concrete, steel, wood. Now, for example, we want the concrete, so I open it and then I select. We can also have the preview, right? For example, I'll select this and then I load it. These do have drops. I don't want it. This is round. I don't need it, right? So I just load this. And then I go to the type, the right view, which is floor plan. Then I click it and I can see the dimensions are duplicate and onto layout. Right? What we are about to do here is to work on the metal structure because it has more details, right? Metal is something we can talk about more, and it actually covers the concrete structure. So select that, I'll select that 4030 column, metal column. Now we want to place this column. Before placing the columns, well, you have to pay attention to 2 points. The first one, here we have 2 kinds of columns, vertical and slanted, all right? And now we want the vertical column, so check it out to be definitely vertical. The second point, the system that places their columns in the structure works like this, that the column goes down from the level we are in. Therefore, here it should be depth, right? It should be depth here. So you're gonna have to open it and then change it to height. Don't forget about it, right? Because if you change it to depth, it will go to the lower level, the ground level, and you think that it's not placed because you cannot see it. Then you go to the level 1, for example, TOS level 1. And then we start placing. We are actually paying attention to the 2 points vertical column, and this should be height. But now, in order to be able to place these columns, we can do it one by one in the place where they're crossed, just like that. We can do it annually. We can also use a tool which is called Add Grids. What does it do? Well, Add Grids creates the structural columns and enter sections of the selected grid lines. Right? So at first click and add grid and then replace the columns. Now answer this question. If I open a box, how many columns does it show? That's right, 4, because it's the intersection of these 4 grids, right? And if I open a big, let's say a complete box, all of them are shown. But if I zoom it a bit, you can see that the columns are placed vertically. Maybe you want them horizontally. You can just click space, that's all. And when you're finished, click finish, right? Now you might want some of them to turn. So select them and then create a space, right? So like this and then click space, just like that. The other thing is that maybe it doesn't have it every place. Maybe all of the intersections don't have the color. Maybe some of them should be deleted. So delete them all, place them all and then delete some of them. For example, these two, or this one, or this one, right? What's the problem? But you should use Add Grid, and then the ones you don't want, you can just delete. Right. The second part is about the gaps, some gaps. Why is it placed here? Well, when the columns go into each other, this is not placed. So the distance between the 2 grids must be noted that the 2 columns don't go into each other. So we can just undo, fix it, or for example, increase the distance, and based on the size of the column, for example, 60 centimeters. Let's review. So at first we selected column, then vertical column, height at grid, and then we open the box, just like that. But if we wanted it to rotate, you could just actually click space. Now finish. Now the ones we don't need, we can just delete. For example, this one, I don't know, for example, this one too. Then we can check it in 3D, all right? We really don't need these levels, which is really annoying. We can just actually hide them. Now, let's check the height of the columns. I'll select them. And then I can check them here. You should say now, base level. What's the base level? What level should they start from? That's right, from the foundation. So it should be TOF, right? Now, until what level? Top level would be TOB level 2. That's right. Now, based on the detail, it might also go on to TOS, but this is more common. TOB level 2. Now let's check it out here. And don't make this mistake that you say it hasn't gone from TOF until this TOS. It is underground. This will not be just one piece of the column. It will go up until there. Now the question, why are the colors being seen as a line, as lines? Why cannot we see the thickness, the volume and all that, you know? Can you say what this relates to? That why instead of showing us the volume of the columns, it's showing us the lines. That's right, it's related to detail level. If you open it and then choose 5, you can see the volume of the columns. So remember that if the detail view is coarse, they will be shown to us as lines. So definitely change it to font. For example, in the same plan we just run, check this columns there's been seen as lines. So if you change it to fine, we can see the volume too. Well, now we want to have the second level too. We'll have this one too. These two are extra. Let me delete them. And they were just for examples. Well, now we want to add the next level, next flow too. For modeling the columns in flows, we have two strategies. The first one is that we can draw the columns flatly, right? But with one condition, it should go up flatly, right? It shouldn't change the direction, change anything, just like that. It should go to the next level, connected and flat. But for walls, you said that this is not possible. But it cannot be a bad idea here in columns. Why? Because usually the columns are built completely and then they are installed in the project. So the first strategy is to draw the columns flatly with one condition. All of them are the same with one direction, one everything. But the second strategy, right, is to draw them flow by flow, like horse. And I said that there are many advantages for that. One of them is that we can have flow by flow dimensions, right? Well, this was really important in the walls, but here in columns, it's not that important because usually the entire skeleton is painful. The flow does not matter. The next thing is about project managing. Well, for example, in Navis, you can have a code that this is built flow by flow. But if you draw it flatly, right, suddenly, for example, all of the flows are built together. The next thing is project management, that if you draw your columns flatly, why, for example, when you want to do a code and you want to do the simulation in Navis, it's not built flow by flow. Suddenly it's designed, it appears in as all of the fields. But we can use these two strategies only, right, when the section of the columns does not change, right? So let's just take the strategy that we might want to, for example, draw them flow by flow. Because drawing it flatly is really easy. You can just select them and change the level. But if you want to have the columns in each flow, we need to copy and paste. But there's a point. The point is that where you select your colors. For example, I go to 3D and I select them and copy. Now I want to paste it. The point is that if you select your columns in 3D, right, you need to paste them in a level that is the upper level. What does it mean? For example, these columns are from foundational to level 2. Where does the next column start from? From level 2 to level 3. It's just that if you copy in 3D, you need to paste it in a level that it will reach the next level, which means TOV level 3. If we paste it in TOV level 2, if it pasted here, it's pasted exactly where it was. So it should be pasted in a level that it will reach in the top of that column. Like here, it would be level 3. So if you select it in 3D, you need to paste it in a level that it will reach upon the top of that column. But if you select it in plan, it's not like this. You can just paste it in the level that the column starts from. Here, for example, I go to TLF. I'll select it. It starts from here, so copy. And then what level will they start from? From TOV level 2. So I go up to TOV level 2. And just like that, the lines are current view. You see that? Well, this is the difference. You must know not to get confused, right? But you can just select it in 3D, copy, and then actually paste it in a level you reach in the next level, which is level 3. I myself usually do this. But next question, why do they have interference? What are they into each other? Think about the reason. Can you say why this happened? Exactly. The reason is that the columns in the lower level start from the foundation. Therefore, their height is more than the floor, more than the level. So a bit of the height is in the ground. So when it's pasted in the next level, the height is a bit too much. Now I can delete that. We talked about it in the walls. You have something called base offset and top offset, right? As said in the walls, it's the same thing in columns. Base offset and top offset of the column should be 0, unless we do it ourselves based on a detail or a design. So while it's already selected, you can just change the base offset to 0. So let me do it again. I'll select it, copy, paste, because they've reached 3. I pasted in 3. While it's already selected, I check the base offset. It has, so I change it to 0. And now the height is okay. Now, for example, the height of number of these will change. For example, these, but all these, so I select them and duplicate. For example, 3 and 25, and 30 and 25, right? The Solab, see them, just like this. Now, a very technical point. To place the parts where the columns are cut, where there is the section of the columns, is called a splash, or we can say SP, splash. In the view, right, here is called the splash. Now, the splash never happens the level of the floor, because here we have the loading. Here is actually considered to be a weak spot, a weak point. And since the section is too much in, right, this installation zone, I actually move this zone a bit higher, right, to be away a bit from that zone. For example, I place it 1 meter higher. Now, in order to do that in Revit, you have to select these colors first, and then 1 meter base offset, right? And it comes up. Now I select the one at the bottom, top offset. Now it's very accurate. Let me do the other one too. One thing that the size have changed. So I'll select the ones at the top, positive base offset, the one at the bottom, positive top offset. And we go to the view, the elevation. You see that? You will also see them later. So in this way, we can paste columns in higher floors, higher levels, and if their sizes changes, we can also fix it. Well, this was everything about the columns. Now let's go for foundation. We have 3 kinds of common foundation in actually the execution. Number 1, isolated foundations, which is beneath each column, and it doesn't have that use. Number 2, wall foundations, and number 3, SMAP foundations. And in number 3, all of the ground is the foundation. In the grounds that the ground is not that strong, or in some factories that there are heavy things in it, right? Now, let's go and check them one by one. Number 1, isolated foundations. So, in foundation, I click isolated. When I click it, right, it says no structural foundations family is loaded. So I say yes, and I go to the structural foundations. 5. Remember, every structural thing you're loading must have the structural name. Like the columns are insisted that don't go to columns, go to structural columns. Here, you need to do the same thing, structural foundations, right? Let's see the preview. All of them, only this part, this basic regular foundation is used. So I let it, and just like before, I duplicate it first, and for example, 180, and the thickness would be 50. Just like that. Well, now for placing the foundation, we have 2 perfect options. Number 1, using add grease. You can go to the TOF, right? And then isolate it and add grease and open a box and finish. Finish. You see that these are extraordinary to build them. The other one is to use add columns. Now, add columns only creates a foundation beneath the columns. Now, which one is better, add columns or add grids? Of course, because sometimes some places we might not have a column. It's a better option to use add columns so that we don't have to delete the extra ones, right? So just click add columns. Point. If you use add columns in 3D, like right now, for example, I'm now opening a box in 3D. The point is that the level should always be TLF, because when you're using add column, for example, it's at level 2. When you open a box, you see what happens. Such thing happens, which is really bad. So check it. The level should always be TOF, and then open a box and finish. If you are in the plan of foundation and then click add columns, you will not see that level because you're in the level and it's only for that level. It's placed in that level. So you don't have to worry about it, right? You can do it in plan, not to worry about anything. But if you're in 3D, don't forget about this level. Now, sometimes many of you, by mistake, the base offset would be, for example, -1. By mistake, right? I mean, 1 meter higher, accidentally. Now, if you choose your foundation, the right level, which is TOF, and then add columns, and open a box where you see we finish, the foundation will go down. And you don't notice that this is wrong. In preview, it's clear, but the foundation always forces itself to go under the column. And when you select it here, it tells you from TOF 1 meter higher. It means it was forced to go down, right? Well, like when you were opening a box, it was correct, it was TOF, but because of the mistake you had in columns, it had to move the foundations down too. So how do we fix it? Always at first fix the column. So I'll select it, I'll change it to 0. What happens? The foundations are automatically fixed. So be careful about this too. Now, imagine that our project next floor does not have this part. For example, it has a balcony. So you can draw it like this, right? Now, about this gap here, you might wonder that this foundation does not mirror. Now, in these situations, you're going to have to fix it manually. You're going to have to select it, duplicate, right? And for example, the size would be 2.50 and 1.80 and 50. Right? Let's change it to 2.50 and then move it just like that. Now, you're going to have to do this manually, right? Now, for example, the places that we have a neighbor, we know that the foundation cannot go into the ground of the neighbors. It should come back, right? So we need to select it, filter, structural foundation, and by bring it back manually.